There is a clock in your bloodline that no one on earth has permission to read. You cannot see it. Your mother could not see it. Your grandfather, who prayed on his knees in a room nobody remembers, could not see it either. But it has been running the entire time, ticking through generations, through funerals, through prayers whispered over sinks full of dishes, through nights when someone in your line cried out to God, received no answer they could recognize, and went to bed thinking nothing happened. Something happened. It just wasn't for them. It was for you. And I need you to hear me clearly, because this is not poetry, and it is not motivation. This is a real thing happening in the real spirit realm right now, in your bloodline, in this exact season. The clock has reached the hour. Heaven calls that hour Kairos. And the moment it strikes, two things happen at once. Everything your ancestors sowed comes due. And the enemy who has been watching that clock more carefully than you have makes his move. That is why you feel what you are feeling right now. That is why the pressure came out of nowhere. That is why the attack is so specific. Let me explain what almost nobody explains. There are two kinds of time. There is the time on your phone, the time that tells you it's Tuesday and the bills are due, and you're 42 years old and nothing has moved. That is Kronos. It is measurement. It is the ordinary river you have been floating down your whole life, and it does not care about your destiny. It just moves. But there is another time. It doesn't tick. It arrives. It opens without warning and closes without apology. Scripture calls it the appointed time, the moment when heaven's readiness and your readiness intersect and something impossible yesterday becomes inevitable today. That is Kairos. It is not something you schedule. It is something that lands on you. You are standing in one right now. And the reason I can say that with such certainty is because of what has been happening to you. Think for a second about the last several months. Not the highlights. The friction. The strange, escalating, oddly personal friction. The relationships that turned. The doors that closed the week before they were supposed to open. The exhaustion sleep doesn't touch. The accusation that rises at 3 in the morning, in a voice that sounds almost like yours, telling you that you missed it, that whatever God had for you passed by while you were busy failing. You thought that was your life, falling apart. It isn't. It is your life being contested. Nobody fights over an empty field. Nobody sets a trap in a place where nothing valuable walks. The intensity of the war you are in right now is a measurement not of your weakness, but of what is sitting in your hands. And what is sitting in your hands did not start with you. Here is where this gets deeper than you expect. The Bible is not a book of individuals. It is a book of bloodlines. God does not deal with you as a floating soul with no history. He deals with you as the current chapter of a story that started long before you drew breath. He says it himself over and over, in a phrase that we read too fast. The God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, the God of Jacob. 3 men, 3 generations, 1 clock. Abraham never entered the land. He walked over it. He camped on it. He buried his wife in a corner of it that he had to buy with silver from strangers who did not respect him. He died holding a promise his eyes never got to verify. And I want you to sit with how that must have felt. Because we have sanitized Abraham into a stained glass window, and he was a man dust in his beard, doubt in his stomach. Told his descendants would be like the stars, dying with 1 legitimate son and a grave in a field. Was Abraham's obedience wasted? Look at what he was really doing. Every altar he built was a stake in the ground. Every time he refused the spoils of a king, he was making a legal declaration in the spirit that his blessing would carry no fingerprints but God's. He was not building a life. He was pouring concrete for a house he would never sleep in. And you are sleeping in it. That is what a bloodline is. It is deposits made in one generation that are withdrawn in another. And here is the part that will reframe your entire understanding of your family. The deposits are not always what you think they are. Some of you come from a family where nobody preached. Nobody prophesied. You look back at your line, and you see alcoholism, divorce, silence, poverty. People who worked themselves into the ground for nothing. And you have concluded that there is no inheritance behind you. Only wreckage. Listen to me. Somewhere back there somebody prayed. Maybe it was a woman with cracked hands who never told anyone. Maybe it was a man who sat in a truck in the dark after his shift and said, "God, if you're real, don't let it end like this," and went inside and never spoke of it again and died without seeing one thing change. You do not know their names. But heaven heard it. And heaven does not discard prayer, because the person who prayed it ran out of time. Prayer is not a transaction. Prayer is a deposit, and a deposit sits there sealed, sovereign, waiting until it lands on the one person in the line who is positioned to receive it. You are that person. That is why the attack is so brutal. Let me tell you about a man who understood this better than almost anyone. Because he was born into a mess so tangled, it should have swallowed him. Joseph. His grandfather was a passive man who loved the wrong son. His father was a con artist who stole a blessing and spent 20 years running from the consequences. And Joseph was raised in a house with 4 mothers, 11 brothers who hated him, and a father whose favoritism was so careless it painted a target on the boy's back. That is not a spiritual pedigree. That is a case file. And yet the clock was running. And when the clock struck, look at what happened. Not a promotion, a pit, and then a sale, and then slavery, and then a lie told by a woman who wanted him, and then a prison, and then 2 years of being forgotten by a man who had promised to remember him. 13 years of the enemy trying to close a window that God had already opened. And I want you to see the strategy in it, because the strategy is being used on you right now. The enemy did not try to kill Joseph. He tried to bury him. He tried to move him so far from Canaan, so far from the dream, that when the moment came, Joseph would no longer be in position to step through it. Every attack was aimed at the same thing: distance. Distance from the promise. Distance from the identity. Distance from the hour. But watch what God did. Every place the enemy dropped Joseph, God used as transport. The pit put him near a caravan. The caravan put him in Egypt. Egypt put him in Potiphar's house. Potiphar's house put him in prison. The prison put him next to Pharaoh's cupbearer. And the cupbearer 2 years late, but not 1 day late, put him in front of the throne of the most powerful man on earth, on the exact morning that Pharaoh woke up from a dream nobody could read. That is Kairos. And Joseph did not arrange one piece of it. Here is what I need you to understand about the attack you are living in. The enemy is not improvising. He is not throwing random chaos at you because he is bored. He is reading the same clock you are ignoring. He knows your hour has come. He knows the deposits behind you are about to be released. And he has one objective, the same objective he has always had, going all the way back to a garden and a lie about identity. He wants you out of position when the door opens. That is it. That is the whole war. He does not need to destroy you. He just needs you distracted, offended, exhausted, or convinced you are disqualified for about 6 months. He needs you bitter at the exact person God is about to use. He needs you to quit the marriage, quit the prayer, quit the hope, not because those choices are catastrophic in themselves, but because they move you off the square where you were supposed to be standing. And he has a favorite weapon. It is not lust. It is not money. It is not fear. It is accusation about your bloodline. Have you noticed the voice? The one that says, "Look at your family. Look what you came from. People like you don't get out. It's in your blood. You will make the same mistakes. You will die in the same house." That voice is not depression. That voice is a legal argument. The enemy is called the accuser. And he does not accuse randomly, he accuses from the record. He goes back through your generations, finds every failure, every addiction, every abandonment, and builds a case. This one has no right to the inheritance. Then he reads that case out loud, in your own head, at night, in your own voice, so that you will agree with it, because the second you agree, the argument becomes a verdict. But here is what he does not want you to remember. The blood of Jesus does not just forgive you. It rewrites the record. When Christ died, he did not merely wipe your personal slate. He took the entire handwriting of ordinances that stood against you, the accumulated legal claim of every generation behind you, and he nailed it to the cross. Not filed it, not suspended it, nailed it. Publicly, like a canceled debt posted on a wall for everyone in the spirit realm to see. Your bloodline has a new record. And the enemy is still reading from the old one, hoping you never check. Let me take you somewhere else, because there is a woman in this story that heaven refuses to let you forget. Rahab, her name shows up in the genealogy of Jesus, and every time I read that I have to stop, because she was not a hidden saint. She was exactly what the text says she was, in a city God had already sentenced to destruction, in a family with no covenant, no history, no altar, nothing. If any human being on earth had the right to say, "I have no inheritance behind me," it was that woman. And when 2 spies came into Jericho, she did something that had nothing to do with her past and everything to do with the hour. She recognized the moment. She had heard about the Red Sea. She had heard what happened to the kings across the Jordan, and while every other person in that city was locking their doors and pretending the news wasn't real, she looked at those 2 men and understood one thing with absolute clarity. This is not a threat. This is a window. And windows close. So, she made a covenant in the middle of a doomed city, hung a scarlet cord out of her window, and pulled her entire family into a house that was about to be the only structure left standing when the walls came down. She did not have a bloodline. She started one. And out of that woman came Boaz, and out of Boaz came Obed, and out of Obed came Jesse, and out of Jesse came David, and out of David in the fullness of time came the Messiah of the world. One woman, 1 hour, one decision to recognize Kairos when it walked through her door dressed as danger. So which one are you? Are you the person carrying deposits you never made, or the person about to make deposits for someone whose face you'll never see? Most of you are both. And that is why this hour matters more than any hour you have lived so far. Now, before I go one step further, I want to speak to you directly. Because if you are still here, you are not here by accident. My name is George. I did not come to this by studying it. I came to it because I lived a season where every door in my life closed at the same time, and I could not find one reason for it. And I sat in that season long enough for God to show me what was actually happening underneath it. What I learned there is not theory. It cost me something, and I have spent the years since then putting it into words for people exactly like you, the ones who feel everything, who carry weight they cannot explain, who have always known there was something in them that nobody around them could name. What you just experienced was not content. It was a mirror. and mirrors demand a decision. If you are ready to go to the root, to finally understand why you think, feel and perceive differently from everyone around you, the secret protocol carries the 7 keys that reveal what God placed inside you before you ever drew your first breath. Full audiobook included for every moment of your day. Plus, the awakening map, as a bonus, the 5 stages of spiritual awakening mapped with clarity, showing where you are right now and what the Spirit is releasing in this season. Link pinned in the first comment. Not for much longer. And you did not make it to the end without a reason. Now let me show you how the attack is exposed. Because that is the real gift of this hour. Not comfort. Exposure. An enemy who is hidden can work forever. An enemy who is seen has already lost his primary weapon. And in a Kairos season, God does something that he does not do. In ordinary time, he drags the strategy into the light. Watch for these 3 signatures. They are how you know what you are fighting is not circumstance. The first signature is timing that is too precise to be coincidence. The check that bounces the week you finally decide to obey. The health scare the month you start praying seriously again. The argument that erupts out of nothing on the morning you are going to do the thing you have put off for 2 years. Life is chaotic, yes, but chaos does not have aim. When the trouble keeps landing on the exact square where you were about to step forward, you are not looking at randomness. You are looking at intelligence. Something is reading your movements. The second signature is that the attack targets your identity, not your circumstances. Notice how the pressure never just says, "This will be hard." It always says, "This is who you are. You'll never change. You're the person who always quits. You're the one nobody stays for. You're too much and not enough at the same time." Circumstances do not talk like that. Only an accuser talks like that. And the moment you hear identity language coming out of a situation, you have found the fingerprint. Because the enemy has known since the garden that he cannot take what God gave you. He can only convince you that it was never yours. The third signature is isolation. Every serious attack in this season will try to get you alone. Alone from the people who would tell you the truth. Alone from the ones who remember what God said about you. Predators separate before they strike. Every single time. And if you look at the last 6 months and see a pattern of relationships quietly falling away, a slow drift into a room where nobody knows what's really happening in you, that is not social change. That is a maneuver. And there is a fourth thing that happens in this hour, and it is the one people mistake for abandonment. The withdrawal. There is a moment in every Kairos season when the voice you had grown used to goes quiet. The songs don't land. The prayers feel like they're bouncing off the ceiling. The presence you could always find is suddenly not where you left it. And the enemy stands in that silence and whispers the same thing he has whispered to every person who ever stood on the edge of an inheritance. He's gone. You lost him. Whatever you did, it was enough to make him leave. Elisha knew that silence. He had left his oxen, burned his plow, walked away from a farm and a life that was working, to carry the bags of a prophet who barely spoke to him. And on the last day, the sons of the prophets kept walking up to him and saying the same thing, over and over, like they were enjoying it. Do you know that the Lord is taking your master away from you today? And Elisha said, Yes, I know. Be quiet. 3 times they told him. 3 times Elijah himself told him to stay behind. Stay here at Gilgal. Stay here at Bethel. Stay here at Jericho. 3 chances to sit down, to accept the ending, to let the older generation walk away with everything it carried. And 3 times Elisha said, As the Lord lives, I will not leave you. He was not being sentimental. He was fighting for the mantle. He understood something that most people never learn. The moment right before an inheritance transfers is the moment when everything in you and around you will tell you to stop walking. The pressure is not there to hurt you. It is there to make you sit down. And if you sit down at Jericho 1 river short, you will watch the chariot come and the mantle fall, and you will not be there to pick it up. He stayed on his feet. He crossed the water. He asked for a double portion, and he was told the hardest condition in Scripture: if you see me when I am taken, it will be yours. Keep your eyes open. That is the whole assignment. And when the whirlwind came and the old man went up, Elisha stood there watching until there was nothing left to watch. And then he tore his own clothes in half, and he bent down, and he picked up the mantle that had fallen from a man who no longer needed it. And then he walked back to the river. Same water, same problem. But now the question was his. He struck the Jordan with that mantle and said, "Where is the Lord God of Elijah?" And the water opened again. The same God, a different generation, the same power, a new set of hands. That is what is being transferred to you. Now here is how you fight this. Not by trying harder. You cannot out-effort a strategy. You fight it by getting back into position. And position, in a Kairos season, is made of 3 things: presence, a place, and an hour where you meet with God, non-negotiable, surviving your feelings. Joseph was not more anointed in the prison than in the pit, but he was in the same posture in both. The clock does not respond to your emotions. It responds to your consistency. Testimony. Remember out loud. Say what God has already done. The enemy fights with accusation from the past, so you fight with testimony from the past. 2 records, 2 voices. Whichever one you speak becomes the one you believe. Obedience in the small thing. Kairos rarely opens through a dramatic act. It opens through the thing you have been avoiding for a year. The apology. The phone call. The forgiveness you keep postponing because you think the offense was too big. The moment you obey in the small thing, you step back onto the square. And the square is where the door is. There is a man in the Bible whose name we almost never say, and he is the hinge of an entire nation's history. Mordecai, he did not rule anything. He sat at the gate. He was a displaced man in a foreign empire, from a bloodline that had been carried away in chains, with no power, no title, no army. And when the decree came down that would erase his entire people, he did the one thing he had the authority to do. He recognized the hour, and he named it. He sent word to Esther, a woman who had been placed inside a palace by a series of events she never chose. And he said the sentence that hangs over every Kairos season in human history. Who knows whether you have come to the kingdom for such a time as this? Look at what is in that sentence. He is not saying God needs you. He is saying, look at where you're standing. Look at what it cost to get you there. You did not choose this palace. Every step that put you here felt like something happening to you. But now the decree is signed, and there is exactly one person in this empire who can walk into that throne room, and it is the girl from a slave family who never planned any of this, and she almost missed it. She hesitated. She sent back word that going in uninvited could cost her life. She was not being faithless, she was being honest. The cost was real. And in that hesitation is every one of us who has felt the moment arrive and thought, not like this, not now, not me. But she moved. She fasted. She gathered her people. She said, if I perish, and she walked into the room. And the empire turned. Not because she was extraordinary, because she was in position when the hour struck, and she said yes to a door she did not open. That is all God is asking of you. He is not asking you to build the door. He is asking you to be standing in front of it, awake, unoffended, unashamed, and unafraid, when it swings. So let me say this to you plainly, because your hour is not theoretical. The deposits behind you are real. The prayers of people you never met are real, and they are not expired, and heaven has been holding them for the exact moment you now find yourself in. The attack against you is real, and it is not random, and it is not proof that you failed. It is proof that something is about to be released that the enemy cannot afford for you to receive. And the clock, the one nobody on earth can read, has reached the hour. You are not late. You were never late. You were being carried through a pit and a prison and 13 years of silence to a morning when a king woke up from a dream and needed exactly one man in the entire kingdom who could tell him what it meant. And you are that man. You are that woman. You are the one the deposits were made for. Now I want you to do something for me before you go. And I want it to be specific, because generic prayers don't move generic mountains. Tell me about the one who prayed. Somewhere in your family line there is a person, maybe you know their name. Maybe you only have a photograph. Maybe you have nothing but a feeling, who cried out to God and never saw the answer. Tell me who you think it was. A grandmother, a great-grandfather, a woman whose name you were given. Write their name in the comments, and write one sentence about what you believe they were asking God for. Because I believe with everything in me that some of you are about to find out that the thing you have been chasing your whole life was never your idea. It was theirs. And you are the answer. This channel is created without ads and without platform income. If these messages have touched your heart, strengthened your faith, or helped you during a difficult moment, and you'd like to support this work, you can use the CR code on your screen or the contribution link in the pinned comment. Thank you for walking this path with us.